Welcome to this week's edition of The Brian Kelly Show, presented by TireRack.com. I'm your host, Tony Simeone, and joined as always by Dick Corbett, head coach for Notre Dame Football, Brian Kelly. It's now time to break down Notre Dame's 31-16 victory over USC. Coach, let's talk about that first drive. 13 plays, 74 yards, a really strong drive, but you didn't come away with any points. What was your mindset after that drive? Because you saw some great things, but nothing on the scoreboard.
Yeah, I think it was probably more about the process than the outcome. The process was what we wanted, and it's what we worked for, it's what we researched, and that was to play faster, play with more tempo, move the ball around, and I thought Jack did a really good job. I think our offensive line did a really good job of making some adjustments because they came out in 3 down. They had been a 4-down defense all year. So I really liked, obviously the things that happened. Certainly we wanted to come away with points there, but I think more than anything else, we felt really good about what this was going to look like because we were going to score because of the way we moved the football.
Defense did a great job. Quick 3 and out, got you the ball right back. Then it was 10 plays, 70 yards. Michael Mayer, who missed the Virginia Tech game, heavily involved, and then Avery Davis with the touchdown. What'd you see on the first scoring drive?
Yeah, again, similar. I think, Tommy Rees was very deliberate in what we were doing, but we were going to stick to it. We ended up being so balanced. I think we had, if you take away the kneels at the end of the game, I think we had 36 passes or 36 runs and 35 passes. And, that balance you saw in the drives as well. And so I think just keeping that balance and running the football, and then obviously the touchdown to Avery Davis versus zone coverage, which again, they had played all man down there. So it was really a nice job by Jack Cohn showing patience and waiting for the open receiver.
Big storyline in this game, of course, Kyle Hamilton going out with the knee injury. And the defense, I thought, really stepped up and filled the void. We'll talk about the Bo Bauer pick in a second, but I just want to know, what was the environment like on the sideline when your best defensive player goes out of the game?
Yeah, obviously you're concerned, but our guys just move on to the next play. They have a lot of faith in DJ and certainly Houston, and they've played a lot of football, and they've played winning football. So as much as you lose a guy like Kyle, they just seem to just play, and that's what you love about this group. They go to the next play, and they play for each other, and they have great confidence in their teammates.
Let's talk about now the Bo Bauer interception. USC was moving the ball pretty well on that drive, and then Myron gets his hand on it. Bo makes the pick, doesn't get in, but really a huge play at that time of the game.
But I'm here to defend Bo. We had our GPS numbers. He ran 19.2 miles per hour. So Slovis had an angle, or this is the defense of Bo, just so he can be let off the hook that he got caught by a quarterback. But it's just a really good play. And obviously we got set up in real good field position. Disappointed that, we didn't cash that in for a touchdown. That was one of those where the outcome was a lot more disappointing because it was, 3 plays and kicked the field goal. But we did get 3 points out of it.
You're playing really well at this point, as you said. 10-0 probably could be 21-0.
Yeah.
USC does well to tack on a field goal. The next drive, Lorenzo Styles, a name we've started to hear a lot more about. He gets involved with the 29-yard catch. What impressed you about him being able to step up on that stage?
Well, he's, a guy that's not overwhelmed by it. I mean, he just, plays the game fast. He plays it physical, and nothing really seems to faze him. So it's nice to see a young player go out there, and whether it's USC or, Toledo, it's all the same to him. He's a football player, and it's nice to see him have some success.
Kyron punches in the touchdown to make it 17-3. We've talked about it a little bit, but his most productive game of the year. Just what's impressed you about him in this season so far?
Well, I think he started slowly and maybe doing a little bit too much. He's back to being the back that he was last year, and that is, one cut and then get north and south and play physical, make people miss, catch the ball coming out of the backfield, be a really good blocker. He was great, 99. Drake was an outstanding pass rusher, and he doubled him up. So just doing all the little jobs that he did last year for us, he's doing them again, and just really efficient for us.
17-3 at halftime. What was the message in the locker room? Because you had USC on the ropes. You want to put them away. What were you telling your guys at intermission?
Yeah, the defense needed to really step up with the first drive. We had not been great in the third quarter, and it was important that we did a really good job and not let our guard down in the third quarter. And we did. I mean, obviously they scored, in the first I think, first series of our first few minutes of the fourth quarter. But, doing a really good job in the third quarter was important for us.
I want to ask you about the third scoring drive, because this is where we've seen maybe the best example of the quarterback platoon system working. Buckner comes in for a few plays, Cone comes back in. How have those guys been able to manage that? And that drive, it looked really seamless the way they handled it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where we've kind of found a comfort level where, Jack is running the offense efficiently with tempo, and then, Buckner can come in and do a similar job, but, maybe a little bit differently, more run-oriented, and then you have to defend him. I think that's the big difference, is making defenses change what they're doing because you've got to defend the quarterback.
So it was 24-3, as you alluded to. Defense gave up a touchdown, then a pick, and another touchdown. It's 24-16, but I thought your team responded really well with that touchdown drive. Ultimately, Buckner runs it in. How impressed were you with that mid-fourth quarter drive to really put the game back to a two-score edge?
Yeah, that was an important one, because defensively we had to make some adjustments. And, I think at that point, what we needed to do was stay on the field. I knew, talking to Tom, that we needed some ball control throws. We did that. We were able to get a couple of first downs. And then once we were able to cross midfield, then it was kind of open up the playbook a little bit and take some shots, and we did, and we were able to score. I think it was a big look. This team has responded well. Virginia Tech, obviously, we had to respond, but this was another indication on how well they respond.
Your defense put it away. Isaiah Foskey with 2 more sacks in this game. I wanted to just ask you about him. He seems to have really come into his zone here. What makes him such a special talent?
Well, physically he's extremely gifted, but he takes care of himself. He gets the rest. He eats right, takes care of himself, works hard in the weight room, and that prepares him well for Saturdays. And he's relentless. He's on our kickoff team. He does all the little jobs as well. So I think he earns all of the respect that he gets, and he prepares for success as well.
I want to talk about the locker room. We've mentioned Kyron. He got one of the game balls. Tariq Brissett got the other one. What was the reason for giving one to him after his performance in this game?
Well, because he's worked really hard. Tariq, this year is put on weight. He's worked hard in the weight room. But more importantly, he's done the things away from the field so much better. He's doing the little things that you have to do to be a consistent player. He's working on all those things that were distractions away from the field. He's putting them aside, and he's focusing on the important things. He's taking care of his academics. He's not on lists. He's a guy that you can obviously look at now, and he plays physical, he plays smart, and it's because of the way he's taking care of himself away from the field.
Last question I have for you is, you're now 8-3 against USC. When you look at your coaching career, just how important is it to you that you're now 8-3 against the Trojans?
Well, I'd like to be 11-0, but I guess if you're looking at it, that's a pretty good run. I'm just fortunate to have the opportunity to go against them 11 times, because I don't know that many have had 11 opportunities to go against USC. So yeah, it's something to think about later, and when I write the book, we'll put that in there. There'll be a chapter on the Trojans. But more importantly, it's another step for this team and the development of this football team, and that's kind of what I look at, when we talk about USC, is rising to the occasion and playing your rival and playing the right way, and we did Saturday night.
You're listening to The Brian Kelly Show, presented by the experts at TireRack.com. Welcome back to The Brian Kelly Show. It's time for this week's installment of Irish Intel, presented by TireRack.com. It's now time for this week's edition of Irish Intel, where we go inside the play. Coach, let's talk through this one here. This is the touchdown that puts you guys back up by 2 scores. Tyler Buckner in at quarterback. Talk me through the play.
Yeah, they had played a lot of zero coverage, so we wanted to get Buckner in because it's hard to defend the quarterback runs. They go into bracket coverage here, which was easy for us. You can see Kane Madden with the kick-out block, lead up there by the running back, Kyron Williams, and he just walks into the end zone. We have more hats than they do, so this was just, again, a defense that's easy to obviously run against. You can see here we've got a great double team at the point of attack. You're going to see right here Josh Lugg come down. You can see Mike Mayer comes down. He's got a great angle. So you got great angles, there's the kick out, and then now Kyron's going to lead up on a corner that's already in the end zone. So pretty easy to call this when you get that kind of defensive look.
Okay, Coach, this is the second touchdown drive of the game. You've got 2nd and goal here from the 5. This time, Kyron Williams punches it in.
Yeah, so this is an option to throw the ball or run it. You can see they're in a 2-deep zone here. And so in 2-deep down here, you've got a very shallow box. You don't have a lot of numbers. It's 3 down, so it's a 5-man box. This is a run read, and you can see, again, it's very difficult to defend a team that wants to run the ball down here when you're in a 2-deep coverage.
So when Jack sees that, as you say, there's 2 safeties backed up inside the goal line even, he's going to check to the run, and that's his call to give it to Kyron.
Absolutely, and you can see here, when you have the additional defender here, he's got to come from a distance here. You can see number 21, he's coming down to be the extra hat, but he's got to come too far. We're on the 7-yard line. Even if he makes the tackle, which he does, Kyron's got a head of steam. He carries him all the way to the goal line. So pretty easy decision here when it's too deep.
It's now time for this week's Look Ahead segment, and as always, we're joined by Bill Reese. Bill, appreciate you taking some time with us as always. I don't know what you think, and we'll find out in a second, but in my eyes, this was the most complete performance by Notre Dame so far this season. It happened to come against their rival. In your eyes, how did you assess this performance by Notre Dame against USC?
You know, I thought I would agree. It was a complete team victory. It was very complimentary. From offense, defense, special teams. Really, the team was excited to play. They were very focused, good preparation leading up to the game, and it showed on Saturday night.
You know, I feel like I've asked this question to multiple people at multiple times this year, whether it was the first game down in Tallahassee or the first time back at Notre Dame Stadium with fans. But this was, again, the first night game, prime time. The environment, at least on TV, looked incredible. It seemed like college football was really back this weekend in a big way. Is that the impression you guys got as well?
Yeah, there's really nothing like a night game at Notre Dame. And the fans were really into it. The players were extremely excited. The light show was incredible. Everything was really well coordinated, and it really, I think, helped the players to really understand that, you know, this isn't an ordinary game. This isn't an ordinary place, and now they get to really live that that experience playing a game at Notre Dame Stadium at night.
The quarterbacks so far this year, Bill, have been a big story. Obviously, there was lots of talk about who should start and who should play how much, but it seemed like against USC, the platoon of bringing in Tyler Buckner at certain points throughout the game, it's really started to work. I'm just curious from your vantage point, how has the team been able to manage the fact that quarterbacks are changing throughout the game, but nobody seems to be losing a step?
Well, I think a lot of the credit really goes to the quarterbacks themselves. They have done a great job of preparing. They certainly understand that as the game goes on, they have to be ready to play. They certainly understand situations and what they've been prepped to do in terms of the reps during the week and everything. So they've really done an outstanding job of fitting in, and Jack gets the start, but you know, whether it's Tyler coming in, whether it's Drew Pine being ready to go, they've all done a great job of prepping to play when their number is called.
You know, statistically, this was Kyron Williams' best game of the year, but I think we talk about him all the time because he's so impressive at sometimes making something out of nothing. He was finally rewarded with some of those stats and a couple more touchdowns. Just what has he done so well this year that's made him really one of the most valuable offensive players probably in the country?
Well, he's extremely competitive, very instinctive. He just runs with the heart of a lion. He doesn't want the first guy to bring him down. And he's so versatile. Not only can he catch and make yards after the catch, he's an extremely good pass protector. No matter what you ask him to do, no matter how, small the job might be or maybe insignificant in some cases, but he will do it with great detail. He has just a tremendous competitive nature to him. And when the game is on the line, he wants the ball. And he always performs when the lights are the brightest. He is an extremely talented player.
Certainly related to that is the offensive line. Seemed like maybe one of their most sound games so far this year, opening some holes for him, also protecting the quarterbacks really well. Now that the season's getting, it's 7 games in, what have you seen from them? Where have the biggest improvements maybe been on the offensive line?
I think continuity has been a huge part for the offensive line. It's something that just doesn't happen overnight. And, we've inserted a couple of new guys, Kristofik and Alt on the left side. They're working with, Jared Patterson. And, that communication, that understanding, it takes a while for those guys to grow together. And I think you're starting to see it. They benefited from having a bye week. We got more reps, more work. And, I would think that this is going to continue as they play more and more snaps together.
Let's talk about the defensive side of the ball. I think that the 2 guys that jumped out to me were Myron Tagovailoa-Amosa and Isaiah Foskey. Just their ability to constantly get pressure in the backfield on the quarterback. They created some big plays, obviously late. They forced the interception that Bauer had. But what have you seen from those 2 that have really helped this defense generate pressure up front?
Well, Myron in particular, I thought had one of his best games of his career Saturday night. He was so disruptive, both in the run and pass, gets a lot of pressure on the quarterback, uses his hands really well. The defense really is so multiple, and his versatility, it really fits him to a T. You can move him inside. He plays outside. You can get him mismatched on an offensive lineman that maybe, can't handle his quickness. And it's really showing up. He's really, really playing well. And then Foskey is just doing a great job of finishing. That was something that he really, had to learn how to do. And, as a young player, sometimes it takes a little bit of time to do that. But his initial pass rush moves, his, ability to maintain it throughout the rush. And then when he's over the top, has a chance to finish, he's been finishing extremely well to the quarterback.
Bo Bauer, mentioned him a little bit earlier. He was on the receiving end of the interception and then almost took it in. I know he's maybe getting a hard time for not getting all the way into the end zone. But to me, he's a guy that sticks out because he plays hard on special teams. He's kind of a blue collar guy. So when he makes a play like that ignites the defense and sets up the offense, what does that do for the entire team when they see a play like that?
That was a huge play in the game. USC was on the verge of getting points, whether it was going to be a touchdown or a field goal. We stop them. Bo takes the ball the other way. We flip the field. We have 1st and goal. You're right. It was a play that really ignited the football team, got everybody excited. Bo is an extremely productive player when he's out on the field, not only when he's playing defense, but on special teams. There probably aren't many players in the country that can produce like he does on special teams. He's terrific.
Last guy I want to talk about before we shift our focus to North Carolina is Tariq Brissett. He got one of the game balls in this one, had his first career interception 2 weeks back against Virginia Tech, but played really sound in a game for Notre Dame. I'm just curious from your vantage point. He seems to be a guy that's been so consistent and has developed really every single year he's been on campus. Just when you see a guy like that get rewarded with the game ball, what goes through your mind?
Well, he's a very skilled player, and Tariq has really good instincts. And again, it's just a confidence thing. He has made plays. He's gotten into a position playing some nickel where he now feels more comfortable. He's gotten more reps, and it's showing because he is a very instinctive player. I think his focus has been outstanding. So he's really put himself in positions to make plays, and he did so on Saturday night. And, we couldn't be happier for Tariq. It's really good to see him have such a good performance on Saturday night.
Let's talk Tar Heels. 4-3. I think they maybe lost a couple games they think they probably shouldn't have going into the season. And maybe the record can be a little misleading here. Preseason top 15 team. There's plenty of talent. I know Brian Kelly today was quick to point out that he's got a ton of respect for Mac Brown. When you just assess North Carolina early on here in the week, what kind of stands out as you prepare for UNC?
Well, this is a very talented team. And when you look at how well they've recruited and you look at them on film, they're athletic. There's no lack of skill. There's no lack of size. This is a team that when they come out of the tunnel, they're going to have the look. And they can certainly put a lot of points on the board. They've got good players on defense. For whatever reason, it hasn't panned out the way they had hoped. but there's still a lot of football left. And I'm sure they're looking at their season as, hey, we can turn things around with a good performance in South Bend.
If you're going to pull the upset in South Bend, you got to have a quarterback, and UNC has one. Sam Howell, obviously coming into the season, one of the Heisman favorites, potential top NFL draft pick. So when you look at him on film, and as you guys prepare to go up against Sam Howell, what are some of the traits that he brings to the table that'll cause some concern on Saturday?
Well, besides being an extremely accurate passer and a guy that has, the ability to make all the throws, he's very experienced. He started as a true freshman. He has seen it all. There isn't a defense or anything you can do to really trick him. He really understands, what you're trying to do and how, he can combat that. The biggest difference that you see right now with him is his ability to tuck the ball and run, and they are designing runs for him. Not that he is a guy that they want to run 25 times a game, but he is a guy you have to account for in the running game. You got to account for his legs. He's big. He's got good speed. So he brings that dimension, whereas maybe as a freshman and even at times last year as a sophomore, he'd be more apt to stay in the pocket and try to get the ball down the field. Now he'll just take off and run and make yards.
Yeah, to your point, if you take away the numbers that adjust for sacks, he's actually their leading rusher this year. So it'll be interesting to keep an eye on how he runs the ball. The other guy that's close to him in rushing yards is, of course, their talented running back, Tai Chandler. What exactly does he do so well that enables him to rack up yards for the Tar Heels?
Well, he's a grad transfer from the University of Tennessee, and he had a good career at Tennessee. He had good production. He catches the ball well. He runs with power. He'll remind you a little bit of the back we saw last week, Ingram from USC, but he might be a step faster, might be a little bit quicker. So he gives them a dimension that was needed when they lost the two good backs to the NFL draft a year ago. But he complements, really the arm and the passing game that Howell gives them.
Their leading receiver, Josh Downs, has 60 receptions on the year. Nobody else has more than 16 on the roster. So when you look at this team and how they'll target him, obviously Notre Dame's coming off a game where they were able to, went up against Drake London, who sees the lion's share of the targets there. So is it a similar kind of situation with Downs coming to town this weekend?
Well, it's a little bit like guarding a small forward like we did last week, and now shifting it to guarding a point guard. He is a slot receiver with excellent quickness, probably around 5'9", 175 pounds, where London was 6'5", 220. They're going to try to get him the ball. They're going to try to get him in space. He is an excellent runner after the catch. He can make you miss. He has the speed to take it the distance. They're going to, obviously try to get him in one-on-one situations as often as they can. But he's one of the better receivers, obviously, we'll see all year.
On the defensive side, just schematically and maybe highlighting a couple of the key personnel, what can Notre Dame fans expect when the Tar Heels show up on Saturday night?
Well, they base out of a 3-4, but they'll play a lot of even man front to go with it, a lot of nickel stuff. But they have two really good inside players in Murphy and Vosek. Big, strong, physical guys. Murphy, in particular, will be a high draft choice when his time comes. They have mobile linebackers that can run. They have two really good edge rushers in Fox and Rucker. Like I said, this is a very talented group, and they've got players that can really cause havoc and rush the passer and play stoutly against the run.
Well, Bill, as always, we appreciate you taking some time. I know we're all looking forward to another night game at Notre Dame Stadium this weekend against the Tar Heels. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, Tony. Thank you.
Welcome back to the Brian Kelly Show, presented by TireRack.com. It's now time for this week's edition of Irishography. So Tariq, you guys got a huge win over USC on Saturday night. I'm curious, just what was it like to play in that environment and get the win over your rival?
Being in that environment, it was amazing, especially when the lights came off. So honestly, it's just breathtaking to me. And, it's always a good win against USC, our rivals. So, yeah, it was just a good team win overall.
For you, you got the game ball in the locker room. I'm always curious, what did that feel like when Coach gave you the game ball and you got to celebrate with your team?
It felt great, honestly, just over the past 4 years, just working and having ups and downs, and getting that was just a great feeling, and being able to celebrate with my teammates.
I want you to try, if you can, go back before you decided to come to Notre Dame, when you were deciding where you might go to school and play football. What about Notre Dame drew you to this place?
Just the culture of it. It's something that you just can't get anywhere else, to be honest. And I guess just, meeting different people in different walks of life and getting a different perspective on anything. And I think that's really something that's key when you come here. You meet someone that does this and give you a different outlook on life.
Let's go back 2 weeks when you're at Virginia Tech. Got your first career interception in another great environment down there in Blacksburg. How did it feel to get your first career interception?
Getting the first career pick is great. Just honestly a confidence boost, and it's just, I don't know, it's unexplainable to me. Like, just getting that and having your hard work pay off. So yeah, it was great.
This is now 7 games with new defensive coordinator Marcus Freeman. I've asked all the defensive guys that have come in here just what's it been like to play in his system so far this year.
He lets you play free, and there's not much plays or designs for you to memorize. It's mostly the same stuff. He just wants you to react and play fast and be physical. So we love Coach Freeman and everything that he's done so far.
Welcome back to the Brian Kelly Show, presented by TireRack.com. It's now time for this week's final check-in.
Hi, Brian. How are you doing?
Good, John. Thank you.
Hey, listen, could you bring us up to date with the injuries to Hamilton and Tyree, if you would? I know Hamilton's out, but anything new to report on that? And the other question I have is, how has Sam Howell changed as a runner this year?
Hamilton's doing well. I mean, he's been actively involved with coaching this week. This has been a coaching week for him. Done a really good job. He's working with the safeties, totally engaged, being a captain, obviously doing a great job. So pleased with that. Had PRP earlier in the week, and then we'll see where he is, but moving around, obviously not practicing. Been in weight training, we're training around, the injury right now. I think in terms of Chris Tyree, we've made the progress necessary for him to be penciled in on, kickoff today. So he'll get the first team reps on kickoff, and he'll get reps in our Thursday, second team, running back reps. So the natural progress. Now he's going to have to, show us today at full speed that he's ready to go. But we like where we're at going into today's practice. So those are the 2 injuries that you had asked about. Sam Howell, he's difficult to bring down. He's big, he's strong. They're running him a lot more, as you know. Quarterback draw in particular is problematic for most because you're trying to defend, the width of the field. It creates great space for him to run. He's tough, he's physical, and, he's difficult to defend when he decides to run the football.
Tim Priester, you're up next.
Brian, without Hamilton this weekend, is it a 3-man rotation with Griffith, Brown, and Pryor at safety, and how is that going? And then secondly, when we talk about slants, North Carolina really likes to run them. You're not a real slant-heavy offense. Is there something about that you don't like, or is there just other stuff you want to get to?
Yeah, those are good questions. I would add KJ Wallace into the mix as well. He would be, that would be the four-player rotation at the safety position, and with Pryor and Wallace as the other 2 safeties. Slants, are built into their RPO game, so it's a natural extension of what they do. So you're going to see a lot more of it. We're not a heavy RPO team, so you don't see it quite as much. I think when Chip was here, you saw a lot more slants because they were a natural extension of the RPO game. We would use slants in our quick game and versus man coverage. So you'll see a little bit of it when we're confronted in those kinds of situations closer to the white and blue zone where we're working, strictly man situations. So it's really about schematically how it fits within your offensive structure.
As a reminder to everybody, if a question for Coach Kelly, use the raise hand function. We're going to go to Eric Hansen next.
Good afternoon, Brian. I got a couple for you.
Okay.
The first one is Blake Fisher kind of had a cryptic tweet the other day that made it sound like maybe he's on a little bit accelerated pace than for his recovery. So we're just guessing at it. So I wondered what your interpretation was of where he is. And then the second thing is you just went through pretty good rundown with Tim about your safety position. But as you saw in the last game, especially when they were reviewing the DJ Brown targeting, you can get down to further down on the depth chart pretty quick. So I wondered if, Xavier Watts, Justin Walters, any of those people are kind of pushing their way toward the depth chart.
Yeah, Xavier is. He had a calf strain, and it really set him back a little bit. We were hoping he'd be further ahead in terms of his development where we wanted him. We're really high on him, and I've been probably his biggest advocate, but unfortunately, the young man has had some soft tissue injuries that have put him back a little bit. But he's ready to go this weekend. So he would be a fifth for us at the safety position if we were called to go that far down. So he's been cross-training both at the safety and the nickel position. And actually, Kyle has been working with him directly one-on-one this week. So that's kind of been his student. So really like his upside. So that would be the five. Blake is ahead of schedule, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to put him on the field this year. But he is doing really well, healing extremely well. And you don't know really, Eric, how people respond to surgery and how their tissue heals and how, all those things come together. He's one of those guys that things have come together really quickly for him, moving around already. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to put him on the field any quicker, but he is ahead of our rehabilitation schedule in the training room.
Tim OMalley is up next.
Coach, this is kind of a general question on defending a guy like Downs from the slot. What are some of the challenges in that two-way go situation, all the stuff they can do with him? Whereas with London, you kind of knew he was on the left side and that's where he was going to be.
Yeah, it's a good question. When you're outside, you can roll the coverage, you can place somebody over the top. You have the opportunities to do things of that nature, that whether you spin a safety down, that's what you have to do with the slot receiver. Your help has to come from top down. And it forces you to show your coverage. And a player like Howell, he's going to obviously get some pre-snap reads that are going to allow him to put the ball where he wants to. So it makes it a little bit more difficult of coverage. We've got to disguise some things and do a really good job of getting him down after the catch. That's really the most important thing for us, defending a guy that is dynamic like him.
Pete Sampson is up next.
Hey, Brian. I had a couple questions. One, the offense sort of going in a different direction last week. How much of the success do you think maybe had to do with the surprise element? You hadn't shown a ton of that. And so what counter punches do you have to sort of be aware of moving forward in terms of how defenses defend it? And the other question was just, I don't know if you caught Illinois, Penn State at all? Just like the change in overtime rules, the added emphasis on the 2-point conversion. Do you practice that any differently, or do you have to have like a larger inventory of those styles of plays available?
Yeah. Here's what I would say is that all we really did was try to pick up our pace a little bit, but it certainly wasn't a pace that even USC plays at. And so all defenses are now accustomed to playing teams that play at a quick pace, especially in the Pac-12. That's a league that, whether it's UCLA, whether it's Oregon State now, they all play, excuse me, at a pretty good pace. So I don't think that's an issue really. Excuse me. I think that in itself is, I think that pace of play didn't really allow us to do much more other than the execution. I think our execution was much better. And we'll continue, obviously to fall on execution over just playing fast. You can play fast and sloppy and it's 3 and out, right? You're punting the football. So for me, more than anything else is we got our quarterback to operate a little bit quicker, which allowed him to play a little bit freer. And I think that's not necessarily a surprise element as much as it was we were executing better because our quarterback was feeling much more comfortable and being allowed to, move the offense a little bit faster. And sorry, as I was choking over here, what was the second part of the question?
He was asking about the 2-point conversions and whether you have to have more.
Oh, yeah.
Because of Illinois, Penn State.
Yeah, no doubt. So you can't carry 9 2-point plays or 8 2-point plays, however that was. So you're going to go to some of your 3rd and short plays. You're going to go to some of your plays that you would use on 4th down. It did get us an opportunity to kind of look at doing some more things with 2-point plays. There's no doubt about that. But you're probably carrying 2 or 3 of them. And then going to your inventory on short yardage situations.
Circle back to Tim Priester. Tim, go ahead.
Yeah, Brian, talking about coverages against North Carolina with Howell running as much as he does, and they do a lot with him. It's not just scrambles.
No doubt.
Yeah, I mean, does that force you to change your coverages? Does it force you to play more zone so that your DBs don't have their backs to the quarterback all the time?
Yeah, I think in a number of situations, I think, Tim, where it concerns us the most is 3rd down. Our 3rd down defense has been, quite a bit of man coverage, and 3rd down becomes problematic now because of the quarterback draw. Last year we got after him, right? And we sacked the quarterback quite a bit. We were able to get after him. Now, obviously the neutralizing of that pass rush is the ability to run quarterback draw. So, we've got to be cognizant of it, right? We've got to run more line games. We've got to be able to take away some of those lanes, in particular, that could be there. So it does slow down your pass rush a little bit and force you to play a little bit more zone.
Tyler Horka is up next. Go ahead, Tyler.
Yeah, Brian, obviously you mentioned Kyle doing some coaching of his own, working with guys like Xavier Watts and the rest of those safeties. You know what you're going to get from him each and every week when he's on the field and healthy, but what's it been like seeing him in this different light, and what have you learned about him as he's kind of gone through this different week?
Yeah, I think he's learning about himself, right? Not being able to play, changes your perspective. And, we had a conversation about what the expectations are when you're not playing. You're a captain. You've got to be able to leave something at the end of the day. If you're not practicing, you've got to leave something on the field. And for him, leave some knowledge. And I think he's done a really good job of understanding that. It's different than when you're playing and practicing, where you leave a lot of your conditioning element and learning the game plan. This is a different role for him, and I think he's adapted really well. And that's, certainly maturity.
And we'll wrap up with Eric Hansen. Eric, go ahead.
I have just a quick recruiting question, Brian.
Yeah.
You had Chad Bowden for almost the whole recruiting cycle now, and Dre Brown for part of one. And I know it's a team effort and so forth, but what in particular of those two positions added to your recruiting efforts and tangible results?
I think I brought this up before. I think it's an incredible bridge to the coaches relative to constant communication with the recruits. There's never now a touch point that hasn't been, I think constantly, kept in contact. You're always, with Chad on defense and Dre on offense. All of those recruits are hearing from us every single day, and not by text, but by, verbal communication. And so both of those guys have done a great job of maintaining that communication on a day-to-day basis.
All right, Coach. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Coach, last week it felt like we were back. Everyone was in the stadium, USC, under the lights, the environment. Just what did it feel like to be back in Notre Dame Stadium in those kind of conditions?
Yeah, that's why you obviously come here. You want that environment. You want the electricity and the sold-out stadium, and that's home field advantage. And so, more of that to come, hopefully.
Let me ask you about one specific element between the third and fourth quarter, something we never seen. The lights went out, big, different light show with different songs. What was your impression of that on the sideline at that time?
It was awesome. I mean, you could feel the energy, the excitement in the crowd and on our sideline. And I was just holding my breath, hoping that the lights came back on. But look, we've come so far, and we've made the steps necessary to, create an atmosphere that's worthy of coming out and seeing a game. Instead of watching it at home, you don't get the same experience as if you came to that game. And I think that's what you have to do. You have to create. First of all, you got to put a good product on the field. You got to put an exciting football team that wins, which we have. And then you have to be interactive. You have to have things going on in that stadium. And I think with the new stadium, the additions to the stadium, the interactive pieces, and the light show, I think it made it work.
Coach, as always, thanks for the time. We'll talk to you next week.
Pleasure. Thank you.
You have been listening to The Brian Kelly Show, presented by the experts at TireRack.com.